Good evening. My name is Dave Morgan. I'm the president of the Board of Trustees for the Murphy Theater. I appreciate you coming out tonight. It's Tuesday night. It's hard to get out of the house on a Tuesday night, but we want to share with you information on what's going on with the theater. And then as a second part of this, we want to take your feedback from what you like about the theater, what would you like to see different. That'll be on the second part. But anyway, again, I'm president of the board. I'm a volunteer here. I don't get a paycheck. I'm here because I love the theater. You can contact me. I'll have business cards if you would like after the presentation, which has my email. So without any further ado, I would like to start on this presentation that talks about the condition of the theater to start with. Okay, now this is a little redundant. We know these things, but I'll go through it anyway. The Murphys recognized as a historic treasure which benefits local citizens, businesses, and schools. As with all historic structure, deterioration occurs over time, requiring renovation, restoration in order to survive. So I'm going to cover the items that we, as the board and as our project committee, hope to be addressing in the next few years. The first one is roof. We've had water damage. If you've been in the theater, you've probably seen some of that in terms of deteriorated plaster, paint, those types of things. The good news is the roofs have been replaced or repaired. There's 7 separate roofs on it, and I'll get into that in a minute. But the roof work is presently done, so we are physically sealed from what comes down onto our roofs. Masonry. This theater is made of thousands of bricks, and each brick has a joint, and joint deterioration occurs over time. And so tuck pointing of the red brick has actually started November 2nd. Also terracotta, tuck point and repair needs to be done. Those 2 items are really the 2 main things that will make sure this theater stays alive. It's going to keep this building dry, and no matter what else we do, that is the main thing we needed to get done. Terracotta cornice. As you look at the front of the building and look straight up, it has a beautiful terracotta cornice, terracotta facing around windows. These pieces are ceramic, very ornate. They've been glazed and fired. And over time, again, we're approaching 100 years on these. If any water gets into that particular arrangement of those terracotta pieces, problems happen, and I'll cover that in a minute. Interior decorative plaster. There's some examples of that you can see here. If back towards the back corner, if you look in the balcony, you'll see some pretty severe damage. Also, as you walk up the stairs to the balcony, you'll find some. This is not a structural item, but if we're wanting to return the Murphy to its former glory, this needs to be addressed at some point, and I'll talk about it in more detail as well. Sidewalk support. You might not know it, but when you stand on the sidewalk outside the building, you're actually standing over the basement. The basement extends all the way to the pavement. Over time, there's been a couple of issues. We had replacement of the sidewalk that's been done some years ago. When that was done, the decking in which the concrete was poured was lowered to an elevation which the contractor decided to cut some of these beams that support it every 8 feet across the width, and as a result, we've got a compromised support system. This was discovered through a tour with CDS Engineering in 2014, end of 2013 maybe, and he was concerned enough that he said we really needed to do something about this short term. So we did, and I'll get into that as well. Theater seating, the seats you're sitting in right now are not terribly comfortable. There's a lot of age on those, and we have received one quote so far to look at replacing the seat and back foam cushioning, the upholstery, and replacement repair of all the hinge joints to get those in good situation. Carpeting, we have a fair amount of wear, and we would like to get it spruced up. And finally, the marquee, we would like to relight it with some energy efficiency lighting and have installed a control system which is modern, that will replace the old system and restore it to do all the things it used to. You might notice there are a few pieces of neon out there that don't work. Here's where we need to, as the theater and as the community really, we need to give gratitude to the people that have really gone way in our favor to get money from the state budget to be put forth for this restoration project. So Speaker Cliff Rosenberger from Clarksville, Senator Bob Peterson from Sabina. All told, we've got $1.15 million to get pretty deep into this renovation work. It's not going to get everything done, but it gets us so far down the road. The building will be in a state of being saved from the elements. It's how to deal with some of these other things, and I'll talk about those also as well. Okay, to the roofs. This is a Google Earth picture, and as you can see, there's a lot of roof levels. They're not all. It's not just one roof on top. There's 7 separate roof elevations, and basically we've completed, let's see, 4 of those roofs have been completely replaced. The remaining ones that had some issues with flashing and so forth have been repaired, and so we're in good shape going forward into the future for some time. The new roofs, we have a 20-year warranty on them, which is factory-based warranty, not a contractor warranty. Masonry. We contracted with Houston Brothers out of Cincinnati. They've done a lot of work. They've done work on Music Hall in Cincinnati, and they're in the process of basically covering this side wall, the rear wall, and the other side wall. I think they should get this wall and the back wall done before they get froze out for the year. And then they will come back in the spring of 2016 to finish that work along with the terracotta work. So basically they go grind bad joints out, mix a historically correct mortar system, and create the fixes, replace brick where brick has fallen out. The other part of the masonry is the terracotta below the cornice. This is the cornice, so you have all these other terracotta elements in the front of the building. Some of those are basically showing signs of some failure. We've got cracking, we've got some loose pieces. However, the good news is this brickwork around the front was tuck pointed not too many years ago, so it's going to be good into the future for some time. Houston Brothers will use appropriate technologies, adhesive sealants, and so forth to get these cracked pieces in shape and basically to weatherproof that from further water intrusion. Okay, the cornice is it's a beautiful thing. If you look at it, we are lucky to be in the possession of the original prints for the theater. Joe Spicer, Dave Stewart have been trying to protect those over the years. And so what we have here is this pretty ornate construction. The problem is It's made out of several different elements, which were described here in a study that we had CDS Engineering in Cincinnati do. The problem is there's been somewhat water infiltration that has contacted these steel elements. When steel eventually rusts, it grows in dimension, so it gets a little fatter, and what happens is, since it's encased in mortar, it cracks it right along this area is where we're seeing the main failure problem. So, okay, so it seems to be limited to that area that I spoke about, where this particular steel piece is expanding. So we retained a company called CDS, a company called Hubbell, supplied the man lift and the manpower, and they did an excavation into the front of it. If you look up from the sidewalk, you can see a black flap of rubber that covers that. From that excavation, they put together a couple of options. So there's two ways to do it. The terracotta ceramic glaze-fired pieces, those are the most expensive way to go. If we were to replace all of these from this point up all the way across with terracotta, they estimate the cost to be $1.3 million. If they would replace those same pieces with a modern alternative, which is fiberglass reinforced plastic, it would be in the range of $800,000. They came to these prices working with contractors and with suppliers of the replacement units. Obviously, we think we need to get into that quite a bit deeper with other options. However, it's as long as we can contain what's going on with this cracking, we don't need to deal with it tomorrow or 3 months from now. We have some time to do some discovery on this and try to find better ways of dealing with it. One way to do that is by cornice containment. I took this picture off the internet. Basically, it's an architect that was doing a similar type of project, and for short-term containment of that, they allowed for this type of structural containment to hold those pieces in place. We're looking at that presently. I've met with, actually this morning, with Mike McCarty and a local contractor to get a handle on what it might cost to do a wrap on this as it stands right now that will allow us to remove the scaffolding from the sidewalk. We get quite a bit of negative comments about the scaffolding, and it's detriment to the look of the building. So if the price seems to be reasonable, we will take it to the board and let them vote on it. Plaster. We talked about that a little bit earlier. So when you've got leaky roofs, leaky walls, plaster saturates, and you can't repair it until it has some time to dry. We've been dry for a few months. We anticipate by next summer we should be dry enough to begin that work, providing the funding that comes from the state is in place as it's been arriving. So we may be able to begin that work possibly during the down months of the theater in the summer. Ornamental paint condition, this kind of goes hand in hand with the plaster restoration. If you have scaffolding up to do plaster work, obviously you don't want to take it down, then put it up again for painting, so we would look to see if we can get those two done, one and then the other. Okay, this sidewalk, this particular photo may or may not give you some idea of what we've got, but basically these are concrete beams that go from the front of the building out to the roadway. So they carry the sidewalk loading, and over the years there's been two things going on. One of them is they've just corroded. Reinforcing rod has expanded and has pop some of the concrete off, and then we've had this other issue of sawing into the top of that. So the CDS engineer recommended we do something, and his idea was this. Basically, he designed a temporary wooden support which basically goes under the concrete beams and restores the load carrying capacity of that beam with the wood bracing under it. So the design was set for standard sidewalk loading, and we are in good condition. We are not compromised. Everything is as it would be designed by an architect or engineer. However, it is wood. Occasionally the bases of those wood pieces will get wet, and it would not have the life as you might expect for concrete or steel. So sometime, actually they recommended within 3 to 5 years, we should replace that. In the interim, we're monitoring. Perhaps we can get further down the road than 3 to 5 years. We'll just make that assumption or make that decision as we continue inspection. So the Murphy's been doing projects. It's not as if the Murphy has been doing nothing and waiting for this great gift we've recently got. Dancing with the Clinton County Stars last year, money from that was denoted for heating and ventilating for the second floor at the front of the building, which is our artist space. And if you've not been up to the artist space, you access it from the front sidewalk on that side. The artists are open tonight, and I'd invite you to go up to look at it. It's a fascinating area. If you look at the original blueprints, you can see that each one of those was originally designed as a store, and it was a store in the past. Up until recently, it's not been used so much, and now it's fully rented out to artists to display their artwork and to bring people to the Murphy, and it's just been a great thing for the theater. These particular HVAC units are high efficiency, so instead of the baseboard heat that we used upstairs, now we're using our operational money better. Other projects, some of them sexy, some of them not so much. On this side of the building, a replacement sidewalk and retaining wall was put in. It was another area where water could infiltrate and go to the basement. Also on this other side of the building, the drainage pipes and so forth were put in a better condition and going to where they should be going, and concrete was poured over there, so there's a little better control of water on that side as well. And also on this side down towards the alley, this particular gate unit was put in. It's a fire code rated gate. In other words, if we had to evacuate the building from that side, you could go down to that gate and just press out and you're out. But it keeps trespassers out of that area and from gaining access to the roof, so it's something we needed to do. We also put in another State Fire Marshal approved gate that goes up to the artist space. So the schedule, when you have a lot of items to complete and you have an idea what the schedule of funding may be for the next several months, we can put together a schedule that is probably true for half year to a year, but you get past that, it gets a little iffy, but I wanted to share with you what our thoughts were. So the roof repair is done. This is 2015 to 16 to 17 to 18, so we're done with that. We've got some repointing going on with the masonry that'll finish up by summer. We have hopes of cornice containment and removing the scaffolding before next summer, maybe spring. Plaster reconstruction, now this one I'm showing either happening in our downtime in the summer of this year or in the one next year, in that same time frame next year. And that's going to hinge, we're working up scope of work. We have to select contractors to do. It's a very specialized work, and availability of these people may not be what we would like, so we may have to shift that into the 2017 year. Here would be the 100th anniversary. So, our hope is we're always optimistic with schedules that we start out, but it looks like we've got some room for some schedule slippage if it's absolutely necessary. But we have a pretty good feel on things so far. Some of these other items, seating, carpet, marquee, they can kind of be done as they fall, as they can fall within the schedule and as funding allows. I'm putting the cornice damage at this point in 2018. It's such a big price tag item. We are not really obligated to act on it immediately. We have other things that we would like to do to get ready for the 100th anniversary instead. So that's why it is there presently. I'm sure willing to hear people's thoughts and concerns on the schedule. There's a lot of projects. We don't have an overall general project manager that we hire because those people cost money. We're trying to do this internally. We have a pretty good group of folks with experience in different areas, so I feel that we can manage the projects well. Okay, before we go to this next part, I'd like to basically ask for help and volunteers to run this business. It's a big business, requires a lot of people. We are in need of members for committees, finance, programming. We are in need of board members. We would like to expand our board by 4 to 6 more board members, if at all possible. Again, I'm a volunteer, big business. Our operational budget is around $240,000 a year. About 1/8 of that comes from memberships. The rest has to be shows, sponsorships, grants, and these types of things. Leslie Keller, that is our director of those activities, has done a great job, but it's a huge job to try to keep this business funded and operating. So the more help, the better. We think we've made some pretty good strides, and we're extremely excited about getting this theater into a good condition again that the community can be proud of. This money that came to us basically came to the community. We're just trying to be good stewards of it. So that said, we'll move into the next part of this. I'd like to introduce Roger Roser. He's with the Eisen Group, and Roger will basically be now taking us through solicitation of ideas and so forth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave. As Dave mentioned, my name is Roger. I've been asked to help moderate this public forum tonight. Let me give you a couple of the simple ground rules. There'll probably be a lot of Q, maybe not as much A tonight, because we want to take in everything that you guys have to say. We want to hear the positives. We want to hear the negatives. I want you to feel comfortable sharing your opinions and your thoughts and your ideas. But before we get into that piece of it, Dave wanted to see if there were any questions specifically about some of the operational issues that he touched on in the PowerPoint, any of the construction issues, contracting issues. So does anybody have any questions or thoughts or something that they need to understand specific to Dave's PowerPoint presentation on this? If you do, just raise your hand. We've got folks walking around with a handheld mic, and Dave can actually address those questions right here and now if you have any specifics. Anyone? There's one.
Okay, the first quote I have. Okay, the question is, what is the price tag to get these seats in a better condition? The first price I have is from American Seating. The price was $80,000 for all of the seats. They would be done by a contracting group that would come in like on off time for the theater, and they might try to get through 30 or 40, and they would just continue that until they were done. What that does is it restores them the way they are. So it will be more comfort in the padding. The seats remain the same dimensions, the same spacing. It's kind of like getting a flight. We're not expanding any footroom or anything, but just to do what we have. $80,000 is our first price on that. Yes,
There's a chair.
that's correct.
Okay, well, I just think that'd be a great opportunity to have people, community members adopt a chair.
And that's in your new marketing plan.
I would adopt a chair.
That's a great idea.
Okay,
You're
great.
sold. Which one do you want?
Thank you. Appreciate
Great
the
question.
question.
Anything else?
I wasn't aware that there was a downtime for the theater. Why is it in the summer, and why is there a downtime? June, July, August?
Can we get to those in the
Okay.
questions with just anything specific to the construction or the contracting right now? Yes, back there. And hold that question. So we'll get to that.
I think we need wider seats because people nowadays are wider.
Well, and that's one of the reasons we want to have this information sharing, because we've not committed to anything but the roof and to tuck pointing at this point in time. Taking your suggestions is what we want to do, and basically, we just need to get some seating specialists. I mean, this is done at other venues you'll go to. You'll go to places that have wider, comfortable seating, and we will search those people out and see what it amounts to. Like everything, from a budgetary standpoint, as you go through these exercises, one really has to pay attention to where the money goes and how much we got. But we should all go in for the list of what we want. And yes, I will take your suggestion and work with that.
Any other questions about the
Yes.
constructions, the issues? Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry.
Back here. Yeah, as far as the sidewalk goes, you said it was damaged during construction.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any kind of thing you can go back on the contractor that put that sidewalk in to have them fund fixing that?
We have a file of some of the documents that related to that particular construction. We're looking at those presently. The other part of that, which part of it was the sawing, and part of it, as you saw in that one picture, is we do just have some beam degradation, rust pop out, that sort of thing. But yeah, we do have that. We've spoke about that at the last board meeting, and we will continue to move forward trying to get some answers on that. Thanks.
What percentage of the walls do you estimate are being tuck pointed? And are there specific areas of the exterior that are more damaged than others?
I can't give you a percentage. That would be a guess. We've had two firms in the past to take a look at basically an encompassing project. Both of them, through their pictorial descriptions of what needed tuck pointing, were very similar. It gives us a reference point then to go back and check the work as it's being done. But the folks that looked at this work were preservation specialists. So, we're taking for granted they know what they're doing, and then Dave Stewart, myself, whoever, we can get up in the man lift and basically look at the work that's been done, and before we just blanket pay people. Does that answer your question? The contract is worth around $80,000. No, it's around $90,000 total. Initially, we just looked at the back walls, and then we contacted them about the terracotta repairs as well. So it's around a $90,000 contract.
Anything else on the construction? The operations? Any of the ways that stuff is being invested? All right, thanks. And Dave's going to stay up here. How this is going to operate, if any of you guys have ever been part of a focus group for a product or a service, is I'm going to go through a series of questions. All of you were given a survey and hopefully a pen or something to write with along the way. So we'll kind of go through this really quickly. And then we'll touch on a few questions along the way to get your feedback and gain in general how it is that you feel about certain things. Keep in mind, we won't necessarily be able to answer every single question tonight because the board may need to discuss certain things even amongst themselves. But what we're going to do is we're encouraging everybody to ask any question you could possibly conceive of. Then once we have all those questions, we're going to be compiling all this data, taking all the questions, and then working with the board to actually craft specific responses as best to their ability. So you're not only asking questions and sharing your opinions and ideas, but from that, we'll actually be providing back to you the response and what you can expect from the Murphy Theater Board. Does that make sense? So that's kind of the game plan. So let's start with your question. Why do we go dark in the summer? Is that the first question that we have? Is that something you want to respond to right now? Or is that something that you want to...
Yeah, I can talk about it a little bit, and actually Marita could add a few words too. Marita Alden's our executive director of the theater. So in the summertime, being able to get people into the theater when other activities are going on, it's not as easily done. We have several events presently that we don't get the amount of people in seats that we would like, which is one of the reasons we're working with this gentleman to try to get more people into the theater. During the theater, summertime at the theater, there is the Good Ferry program, which is pretty much a summer-long kids event thing. When I said the theater goes dark, that's not quite exactly right. There are activities for children in terms of arts and so forth that are put on. But typically, last show is going to be in June, and we pick up again in September. Anything you would like to add to that, Marita? Nope.
Great. And again, don't be shy about asking the question. So if you feel that we're not giving you all the answers tonight just because of the context of how this forum is, don't mean that we're not ignoring the question or not appreciating your opinion. So feel free to share, and we'll get back to those. Now, does everybody have a survey? Everybody can confirm, nodding their head, that they've got one of those surveys. How often do you guys go to the Murphy Theater website? Rarely? There is a Murphy Theater website, right? Anybody? Never? 3 times a year? Why do you usually go to the website? Just to see what's playing or to volunteer? What's the main reason you're checking out the site? Just to see what the schedule is. See what's going on. Does the website serve you well in that regard? Do you feel that it functions properly? Be better, worse? You've seen worse?
And then I went home and
Very good.
got online.
Mm-hmm.
I would see the marquee and then would go home and check out.
Okay.
So that's
And that leads us kind of logically into the next question. When the Murphy Theater communicates to all of you or to the community, how do you tend to digest that information? Where do you feel that it comes from that impacts you the most so you can act upon it? That's a nice marquee. It'd be better with LED lights, though.
I think so.
Yes, the energy efficient lights. Okay. Would you be interested in signing up for an e-newsletter or an e-alert that you would get maybe once a week or once a month into your email and say, hey, this whatever? Or if you were a patron that you would get some special something or another? So would you sign up for an e-newsletter? Do you already get too many e-newsletters? Indeed, we all do. If you're interested in signing up, put your email on here. On a scale of 1 to 5, right? Everybody's got this on their survey. You don't need to answer now, but what's your experience with the staff here? I mean, knowing that folks are volunteering, they're donating their time, and again, be honest. I don't I'm not a staff member here. I'm not a volunteer here. We want to know that we're making your experience as magical and awesome and as amazing as it possibly can be. And we really want to stress that that's important to us. So if you don't think that we're living up to that, give us a 1. If you think that we're doing a good job, give us a 5. But please do respond to that, because what we're going to do is look at this again next year and take whatever answers you guys are giving today and see how we've grown or succeeded. Our goal is to get all 5s next year. But if you truly believe it's a 1 or a 2 or whatever, please share that. You're not going to hurt anybody's feelings. And keep in mind too. I mean, hard work is such, but volunteering just in general isn't a reward in and of itself. It needs to be part of your experience. So if you feel it's positive, give it a fair number. It's just something that really is valuable to us. We appreciate the volunteers, but if they could be doing anything better, that's definitely something we want to know. For the volunteers, the board, etc. Yeah. No, there's 5 different questions in here where we ask how you feel about the staff, how you feel about the volunteers, and how you feel about the board. So as you're going through the survey, mark that off, because that's always helpful to hear and helpful to understand. Does that make sense? Do you see that's on a scale 1 to 5, 1 being the most negative, 5 being the most positive? Rate your experience with the staff. How about the quality of the performances here and the acts? Is that closer to a 1? Is that closer to a 5? Sometimes it's a 5, sometimes it's a 1. Everybody's going to have an opinion there, but in general, you want to make sure that you're bringing in good quality entertainment. So again, across the board, if that's getting those numbers, we just want your honesty and feedback, because we want to know what kind of events and what kind of shows that.
Sure. Follow up on my original question. How do we distinguish between who's volunteer and who's staff? How do we know that?
Basically, just based on your experiences that you've had here, whether you know somebody as a volunteer or they're a full staff member. Marita, how many specific full-time staff members are there?
There's only 2 full-time staff members, myself and yes, dear. There's 2. Oh my goodness. There's 2 full-time staff members. That would be myself, Marita Alden, and Leslie Keller. She's not exactly staff. She's independently employed. And then we have part-time office people, and then all of our tech crew is part-time / volunteer. They give a lot of time that they never bill the theater for in our technical crew. So we're minimal staff. We're mostly volunteer. I'd say 95% volunteer.
So everything from how you're greeted when you enter the theater to folks at the concession stand to the sound and lighting crew, etc. So just how you feel that they're doing. True or false? Murphy is Wilmington's top tourist attraction, #1. Is that true? What is it then? Damon's?
Yeah.
Lowe's? Is that true? I'm a Cincinnatian, so I don't know.
It should be.
It should be. That's a fair answer.
City Council here 10 years ago passed the entertainment district legislation, and we have seen the rise of restaurants downtown and on the edge of downtown, but we have not. This has still not become the entertainment district that I think was envisioned when council passed it in 2008 or 9.
When you look at the economic development of any community, it almost always harkens back to the strength of any given tourist attraction or some excuse or reason that folks are specifically coming to town. And certainly this theater would be a big piece of that. So you want to make sure, even for the vibrancy of the entire community, that this place is functioning as best as you want it to be. And it's kind of one of those adages that all of us here, it's pretty obvious that all of you really care about the Murphy and are passionate about it one way or another, just by the mere fact that you're here today. So all of us are kind of brand ambassadors of the Murphy. And if you think it's a wonderful place, you want to share that with your friends. But if you think it's a lousy place, you might be sharing that with your friends too. So you want to make sure that everybody's saying it's a wonderful place. And that shouldn't just be lip service. It should be true. It should be the actual experience. So if there's any part of it that you feel needs improvement or could be better, we really do want to know, because we want the whole of the town saying that the Murphy is really a magical experience and this is really something to see and do while you're in town, or because you specifically came to this town to specifically see this gem. So, keep that in mind. If there's something that gives you any negative feelings about the Murphy, if there's something that you think could be better, tell us, because we want to be able to address that and make sure that this whole town understands that this is a huge economic engine to the growth and success of this entire community. So, is it true that you truly enjoy coming to the events here? That when you come here, this is like, wow. For the most part, yeah, that's cool. Pretty good shows. How was the Paul McCartney experience? I didn't go. Was it good? What's the best show? What is it? Well, pick one. What's your favorite? What is it? Tom Jones played here? It's not unusual. That's pretty good. Nice. I didn't know Tom Jones was here. Phil Dirt.
Phil Dirt. How many of you were here for Dancing with the Clinton County Stars? Okay. That was Dancing with the Clinton County Stars, our fundraiser in October.
One of the big things that my firm is big on is research and really understanding the demographics and the makeup of the community. Free ticket to a coming show. I'll pay for it, Marita, in case we can't give it. But can anybody guess the average age of a Wilmington resident, not including children? 18 and over. That is incorrect, but you're close. Anyone? Come on, you free ticket. 33. 33 years old is the average age of a Wilmington resident. So, I know who Tom Jones is because I'm old. But anything you think that we could do to draw maybe a younger crowd? Anything?
Working with a college,
Okay.
making a co-op with a college program.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so there's the activities planning board. So reaching out to them, I mean, each student has to pay like $300 for the activities planning board that comes out of their tuition.
Okay.
So you could go to them, see if they could buy tickets in bulk, and then the students are already paying for it. So it'd just be like reaching out and making that connection.
What a great opportunity.
Also lends itself to a partnership with the schools in terms of, I'm looking at the marquee as I'm walking in, and Gary Kersey's going to be here on Thursday night. I'm a history teacher. I know that now, but darn it, there's parent-teacher conferences.
Right.
So I would ask my students to come. I've done that in the past, but I could see professors at the college doing the same thing. I mean, we were in college, go to attend different events at different theaters, and you get credit for it. And I think that if we could know well in advance and plan for it, then we can plan around it.
Is communication kind of an issue of letting you guys know a little bit more proactively what's coming, or how can we get more involved with? I mean, the college is another gem here in town, obviously, in the schools. So how can we better communicate with you guys? What would you suggest? Okay, that's good. Are you surprised to know that the average age is 33? The average income is about 28 grand. So, a little bit lower than Ohio in general. But what a great date night, especially if I'm in college and I'm poor, maybe bring my date, that's kind of a good gig. Or some of the events that we have here. Show of hands, if you were asked, would you volunteer here? You would. That's wonderful. That's great. Why don't you? I'm just curious. Just nobody asked you, or you didn't know you could, or you didn't know that they were needed? They are desperate for volunteers.
So I have a question regarding outreach and programming. You're from Cincinnati. Have you ever been to the Murphy Theater?
Before when?
In other words, to see a show.
No, I have not.
So a lot of people in here, we have different, like you spoke, in terms of diversity of what we could see as a community. In other words, it's pretty easy to put Dancing with the Stars up there. It's pretty easy to get the community involved in those things. So a lot of our income, if you're going to spend a lot of money on a ticket, it's going to come from someone outside of the community.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm more curious about what would bring you to the Murphy Theater and versus what because we kind of know why we're here.
Sure. And I think that that's, a question for all of us to be asking tonight. I think that from what I've seen as I've done the audit of, quick background, I'm the CEO of the Eisen Agency. We're one of the largest marketing and public relations and branding firms in the state of Ohio. So we work with all kinds of businesses, entertainment entities. We do a lot of travel and tourism marketing and such. And so in regards to that question, what I like and what other folks like, that's all going to vary because everybody's got very eclectic tastes and different tastes. And my goal, and that's why we kind of call it Operation, 769. We want to make a packed house every single night. So we need to find folks and events and opportunities that are going to come in here. So I think that that's really what we need to hear from you. Because what I might like to have or what I might like to see might make Dave, run for the hills, right? Or vice versa. But whatever we have in here, as long as it's reasonably in good taste for the community, right? I mean, we don't want to have anything too bizarre.
So I get what you're saying because I agree with you because there are things that come here that nobody in Wilmington would come see.
Right.
And someone thought that would be a good thing for somebody
Right.
from out of town.
Yes.
But what works, if you go to the Golden Lamb, it's a destination, it's there.
Yes.
You should be, a year from now, be thinking about, gosh, I wish I could go to the Murphy Theater in Wilmington because it's a destination,
Absolutely.
no matter what's there. So I guess that's kind of what I'm really talking about in terms of not so much the entertainment, but how do you become the destination like the Ohio Theater is in Columbus, all those places. I have no idea what's playing up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Branson,
Well,
Missouri.
and even
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. The reason that the reason that my firm was hired was for exactly that reason, is getting the word out and truly making the Murphy a destination point for travelers and tourists that are either in the region because they're specifically choosing to come here to not only see a show, but to get involved in some of the wonderful events that we have suggested leading up to the countdown to 100. So, I'm a history buff, so I specifically made a pilgrimage, to like Louisville, Kentucky a couple, years ago, only because of the way that there were so many nifty things that were interesting to me that were there. And you guys have that here, something that a lot of other smaller towns simply don't have. And your allusion to the Golden Lamb is actually a really, really good one, because people specifically drive Lord knows how much distance to go specifically just to that restaurant. And the marketing program that we have on the table that Dave and I and the board will be working through and discussing, again, money solves all problems, but it is designed to specifically do exactly what you're suggesting of not only creating this icon of Wilmington as a specific destination point, but also make an incredible positive economic impact to this community as a whole. Because what's good for the theater is going to be good for the town. You get 700, 800 people coming here, and then they got to eat somewhere, they got to stay somewhere, and they got to buy a trinket from something. So we're working on that.
And they have to stay somewhere. And I hope that as you think about this, is take a look at our hotel motel tax, because we do get, if we're putting, heads in the beds, we are getting more money. that can cycle more money into, I mean, we have a good number of hotels here. And the extent to which this theater matches up with those hotels, producing more money that then can be invested in creating more hotel tax. It's a virtuous circle.
And that's you really nailed the term there. When we get those types of shows, and all of a sudden even the acts are looking at which venue that they want to perform in, if this has a reputation of consistently full houses, this has a reputation of being a great place to play and perform, that level of act is going to increase as well. So I don't think it's going to happen overnight, but I'm confident that it will happen. Because again, because I'd like to see a KISS tribute band play here. I don't know how many of you guys would, but I would drive from Cincinnati to see that.
Does the seating capacity limit the types of acts that can come in? I mean, obviously there's a finite amount of revenue that you get from seating.
You want that one, Dave?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Let me say this. Some acts that we historically know return year on year and fill the house, that becomes something that we can bank on in our budget for ticket sales. When we try to experiment and get a little outside the box based on what it is, we're at risk. You know, we've contracted with this entertainer, and filling the seats is not something we've been great at. So we need to improve that skill so that we can bring a little bit more diverse stuff around here. Not that there's anything wrong with the lineups we've had, I don't think, but I think we could stamp some variety. We might be able to appeal to folks that don't come here because maybe what we offer right now doesn't suit them. But yes, for sure, well, for example, last year we had an Irish group come in. St. Patrick's thing, we had some sponsors for that to offset part of that cost, but they were $6,500. So you need to fill more than 100 seats for that. The other part of it we have is we have staff that is a cost for us, which is sound, light, all of the tech-related things. Those are costs that lay on us. So we would have more confidence in bringing up other acts if we felt we had a better method of filling seats. I'll put it that way. Does that answer your question at all?
I mean, you're going to be limited at some level. I mean, you're going to have certainly the Class A entertainers that this would be too small of a venue. Then you've got the folks that are just on the up and coming that simply couldn't fill the venue no matter what you tried to do. But again, going back to us making sure that this is that magical experience for you, there may be events that are coming up as long as we're communicating them well. Maybe you'll take a chance on it and go see the KISS tribute band or something. So, I think that as we become brand ambassadors and are sharing that message with the community, only if it deserves it and only if you feel that we are living up to those expectations. But I think that is a community-wide thing of sharing, hey, there's an Irish thing coming here. That may not be my cup of tea, but I'm going to go check that out. That could be kind of nifty. So those are good.
There's a question there.
Where's the next question? There it is, back there.
This is loud. I was just thinking that there's a little confusion between the shows that the Murphy sponsors and shows that people rent the theater. And I think that some people think that they're not being kept informed of the things that the Murphy sponsors. And so is there some way that we can put it on the website when somebody rents the theater and wants people to come?
Yes. Sure. Yep, we can do that. And we should. That's a great point. For example, John Michael Montgomery. We could, as a theater business, unless we filled all the seats with a premium ticket price, we cannot afford that. That was a rental, and it was done for a great cause, for veterans, wounded veterans. it happened because it was a rental, and there was sponsorship that allowed them to make money for their cause. Taking on rentals, not the type of rental like for a wedding or for a church event, but a rental for an entertainment event, what that does for the Murphy is it reduces our exposure. Again, if we can do a better job of filling seats, we don't need to do so much of that. And that's not a bad thing because basically rentals last year, I was thinking the number was around $20,000. So that was the income from that. That includes some church events and weddings, but it is somewhat profitable, but it's not our core business.
And we're in the process of creating a whole new website experience for the Murphy Theater that we hope to launch in January. And I would also say if you haven't liked the Murphy Theater on Facebook, please do so. But we're going to continue to find other ways to more efficiently communicate with all the patrons and the community in general. So hopefully the website experience is going to be a real positive one for you, as well as Facebook. So and the e-newsletter, which we hope to launch also around then. Any other questions? Any other comments? What could the Murphy do better? What could the Murphy be doing better?
Are you going after promoters, looking at promoters to promote shows here, or to actively, generate income to the theater as far as promoters go, getting promoters to bring shows in here?
Well, that's it. They need to share the risk. It's pretty easy to come up with ideas of who we can hire. I think we can find that out pretty often ourselves. But yeah, if a promoter will be willing to share risk, yeah, we're willing to talk with that, and we have done some of that in the past.
A lot of these acts, as they're coming through, they've got quite a good cache of existing marketing materials, which we'll be able to capitalize upon. But back to Dave's point, a lot of times when folks are bringing acts or entertainers into a venue, the promoter is taking on a fairly significant amount of risk. So that's a really good point. Any other questions? What can we do better? I'll be here Saturday night. I don't cost much at all.
Well, that's one of those suggestions we need to definitely
For sure. Yeah,
take
appreciate
note
that.
on.
I mean, any other kind of shows? Comedy is one.
Mm-hmm.
Magic? Would you guys come to a magic show? Right. If it was a good magic show. What other kind of shows? We've heard comedy, we've heard music.
There's a question.
Yeah. We're coming.
I miss Renfro Valley. I understand that they are going defunct or something. They always pack the house.
I don't know that group, but...
They're not in existence anymore.
Oh, okay. Oh.
They still have their park or whatever, but as far as going out on the road, we ask them to come, and they're not. Correct.
Sad, the bands that go by the wayside. Any other kinds of acts? What's that?
If you have a family-friendly thing like a magic show, I would suggest that there are children's prices. I know that every seat is, a seat, just like on an airplane. But we have many family friends that do not come because they have children that it's just 5 times whatever. It's a lot of money. So
We have some wonderful ideas and options planned for 2016.
Before she took the mic, I was going to say, Over the Rhine just moved in
right.
the county, and we went to their barn raising and stuff, and I would like talk to them about helping out.
I agree.
That's a good point. That's a good point. We should reach out. Again, we're looking for volunteers on the programming committee, so
I think he just volunteered to talk to OTR. Anything else? There's one.
Can you give us a general idea of what it costs to bring acts in? Because I don't know that we really have a good feel for what it costs. And you may not want to name specific artists and what it costs, but just give some general idea by the level of performer what you might expect to have to pay to bring them in.
Marita could probably answer that. I'll try. So we have some acts around $6,000. We'll have some around $3,500. On top of that, you can add anywhere from $400 to $1,000 for technical staff based on the complexity of the gig, that sort of thing. But do you want to expand on that any, Marita?
Not only is the technical crew involved, but then just the utility bills for our theater, and then lots of the crews, the shows that come in, they require hospitality, so a hot meal for 7 or 8 people, plus hotel rooms, and it all just adds up. So there's a lot more, but I think $5,000 or maybe $6,500 is our most expensive act that we've had since I've been here.
One of the things that my wife and I like to go see live music, and there's a few groups that will travel a distance to go see and go spend the night someplace to go see them. And one thing we find is we follow them on their own website. And so one example, Paul Thorne Band. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Paul Thorne, but we like to go watch them play. And I would think, I don't know where he would fall as far as a cost for a show, or someone like him, not specifically him. But if you could get acts that have a national following, where you've got people that will travel a couple hours to go see them when they come to the theater, because this is a beautiful theater, and the acoustics here as well and are fantastic. And so I don't know where that line in the sand is where you cross it and start bringing in more expensive because, you build it and they will come type of mentality.
I mean, we agree. And if there's acts out there that are specific acts that you guys are interested in seeing, I mean, even if it's, pie in the sky, send us an email. Let us know. On the new website, there's going to be a very specific section where you're going to be able to submit an idea or submit a tip. That's not to say that we're going to get Justin Bieber to come in here, but, well, which may be good. But, let us know, because there are ways to reach out to these folks. And believe me, any band will play any venue if the price is right. So, and if there's certain groups that you guys are aware of, that you follow or that you like or that you're interested in, send them an email. Please come to Wilmington. You'd be shocked how well that works.
Couple questions, or one question in particular. A lot of performers play unplugged, and I don't know if that's an opportunity for here. Instead of bringing the whole band, they just come with their acoustical guitar and play. So I imagine the costs are a little bit less than that. But also, I'm interested in theater, and I haven't seen too many plays here, and I didn't know if that was a possibility too.
Okay. Would you guys do community theater here? Would you guys be interested in seeing that? Yeah. Death of a Salesman?
You have the advantage in this town of having a second stage, of course. The Highland Theater at the college, which is superb. And in many ways, its backstage is far more advanced than this one. And indeed, if you visit theaters that are doing Broadway-type shows, you will see that there have been huge advancements on the back end, which, if at some point this will have to do. So I think probably one of the things that prevents here is this is a short stage. But community theater, we do have community theater at the college, a summer theater, which is now, I think, in its 45th year, and sold out 4 shows this summer. So it is supported. Yeah. And there is Brian Wallingford's got has got a new troupe that's been doing shows here as well.
Fun. A little vaudeville, a little tip of the hat. Any other questions, thoughts, comments, words of wisdom?
To the point of just having an acoustic evening, we went to a show up in Newark, Ohio, the theater, I think it's the Madison Theater, that's very similar to this up there. And they did something very interesting. They had an individual acoustic player come in, and they put them clear at the end of the stage with their back against the wall, and then filled the stage with tables for four. And the performer came in for 2 evenings. They did shows on Friday and Saturday night. And so there were no one was seated out in the audience. Everybody was on stage.
How fun.
It was a very intimate evening, and they had a hors d'oeuvre buffet.
I see
set
another
up in a
person wanting
cash
to
bar.
join the programming committee.
So
Dave.
that was
Yes.
very interesting. You've got about the same stage space that they had up there.
That's great. Yeah, keep those ideas coming.
We have done that here. Yes, we've done that.
Yeah, cute
here
idea.
Several times.
What about independent films or just vintage films? Would that be an option?
Or vintage independent films.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think what our issue is promotion of these things to get it out in front of everyone that may be interested. And I don't think we're doing that, but I would love to see some of that. We last year, through one of our grants, were able to buy a $16,000 Sony projector, which is doing this. Prior to that, the lumens of the prior unit was weak. We can now actually show movies that we're proud of the quality of the image. I would love to see
a cool idea.
that type of thing. I like art film. I like the idea of an acoustic, kind of a bare bones type of performance thing. Somehow we need to get to where we can get the word out and get more seats filled. We have had, last year we had one show that lost money. Just one show. In the past, I've heard there's been some other shows that have lost money, and we're really leery of doing that type of thing, especially when we've got $240,000 expenses, all of the cost items that are associated with this place. But I would love to reach a little further and try some new things. Again, we just need to be able to get the information out to the people who will say, yeah, I want to go see that. But yeah, I would love to see that.
I think it would be worth the effort to talk with local and regional employers to see if there would be any opportunity to do like inspirational, motivational leadership type of programming that they would sponsor and or send employees to.
It's a great idea.
That is good.
How many shows do you do during the season? And then what are your capabilities? Like, I know you have all the volunteers, so like, is it possible to do something every weekend, or is that just crazy? Or do you just do?
Well, yeah, our staffing level, we have a great pool of volunteers that do duty with ushering and a lot of that type of thing. Our board needs to be bigger. Our board is a working board. They need to, be active when we have events. We could do more with more people. I think we could.
So, are you having as many shows as you should be having to keep the theater going? You know what I'm saying?
I think I do. And the answer to that, again, I think, is we have to have some guarantee that we're going to get a return on each show. How far do you go? How many shows do you get to where you've saturated this market? And I don't know. And that's another thing to talk about, and this man knows how to talk about markets. I don't. I'm a construction guy. But, you think about the Clinton County area. What is that radius that comes to most of them? How is there a way that we can expand that with some of these more interesting type of events? How do you make this a destination for people an hour away? My wife and I regularly will See, we've been to Chicago, we've been to Louisville, Columbus, just to see musical events this year. Because, first off, we knew about it. We wanted to see that particular event. So I wonder if, we need to get better at getting that word out. But I'd love to see more events. But we need, we've got to staff up in terms of board members, committee members, to institute some of the things that he's going to be recommending us do.
When we looked at the audit of what was plausible, and it's not hard to do the math when you look at the number of seats that you have based on, the maximum amount of tickets that you can sell, and then you're looking at the market area of what you're going to draw from, and then you have certain niche folks that are going to come out here that could draw literally from hundreds of miles in certain cases. It's not practical to market at that radius at a consistent level. It would just simply be cost prohibitive, and the returns would be abysmal. But for certain types of events, it makes sense to invest in those sorts of things, and then that's when you start building that momentum. When we did the audit of the communications, that was a specific area that we found some opportunity for improvement of getting the word out about what the shows were to the right kind of target publics that would likely come to those types of things. But again, back to Dave's point, that's a product of, it's a weird catch-22 that you're stuck in. Can you invest the dollars to get the word out? Can you take that kind of risk if you end up spending a significant amount of dollars on promotions and folks still don't come out to that? So, you are kind of doing a balancing act with that. But I would suggest that just looking at the market area in general and the nature of what you guys have here and the uniqueness of this, that there is definitely opportunity for additional shows and additional folks to come in here. I wouldn't say that they've tapped. I wouldn't say that they're at max number of shows right now. But you need volunteers. Because you can't have a show with nobody to open the doors or turn the lights on. What else? Any other questions? Thoughts? Yes.
I'm going to follow up on Mary Beth's, thank you, Mary Beth's comment about art films and so on. I don't know what it costs for documentaries and so on to show something like that here, but I go to Yellow Springs all the time, the Little Art Theater. I love that place. Yeah. And that's, to me, I'm driving 25 miles. And I would think that if we had similar shows here, we would see people from Lebanon, from Mason. Because when you think of the art theaters, there's not that many around. You got the Neon, you got the Esquire, you got the Marymount, and you got Little Art. And I think this would be a great place to kind of join in with the rest of them and show films that a lot of people don't have exposure to, especially in this town. It's a date night movie place in Wilmington.
Yep.
So.
I mean, it would, depending on the rights, like it was Back to the Future, like the actual day on Back to the Future 2 a month or so ago. That would have been neat to have a Back to the Future theme here. So, I mean, there's lots of different ways to tie different things in, but again, that's kind of an operational issue. And I don't think there's any shortage of things that we could do. It's how would we pull some of that off given some of the existing pieces. So, any other thoughts? Any other questions?
Yes. You talk about the website, but how about Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that? That catches more people. If you did like a membership through Facebook, I know one band that said, we want to have 5,000 friends on Facebook. And they just kept going with their friends, and they got 6,000 now, just on Facebook. Do you have someone in charge of, I guess, instituting Facebook and keeping Facebook rolling for the theater?
Yes.
And going that way? And my second question is, with the things that happened in France this last weekend,
yes.
security here at the theater, is there any concerns about increasing security here at the theater because of what happened in France?
I'll address the Facebook and the website if you want to address the France situation.
Sure. We haven't, as a board, discussed that. Obviously, those type of events happen, and it's shocking. It's no different than the theater shootings that have happened over the last few years. We have not chosen to have security personnel in here at this point in time. I guess one way to look at it is a place like this should be, I guess, a low-level target, if you call it that. But again, I understand there's risk when you walk out the door, any place you go. It's a good point, and we'll consider conversations about that for sure.
And per your question about the website, my firm has been asked to redo the site. We'll be managing your social media, and we'll be looking at all social media channels, Instagram, Pinterest, everything, Foursquare, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and leveraging those to our advantage. All in context of an overarching, fully integrated marketing campaign and marketing plans. So the plan itself is not a series of piecemeal items. It's an integrated Swiss watch. So all those things should be working well in concert together to really communicate what's going on at the Murphy like never before, and also create opportunities where we have brand ambassadors throughout the entire community and region sharing how wonderful and magical this space is. So yes, that's coming.
I was wondering if social media has made direct mailing not cost effective.
Yes and no. Direct mail is still a tremendously effective way to communicate with folks. But there's such a thing now that, and I don't want to bore everybody with my, jargon and such, but we're going to be using a concept and a strategy called affinity marketing. That's where the items that we'll be sending out, whichever the correspondence may be, whether it's an electronic newsletter, whether it's a physical printed mailer, whether it's social media, because folks absorb different pieces of information in different ways. But what we'll do is have a much more targeted focus on who we're sending things out to based on the type of event and item coming to the theater. So if we think that demographically this is likely going to be something that somebody of this demographic is going to be interested in, we're going to do a much better job of targeting that as opposed to a shotgun approach. It's going to be a lot more laser focused and target. So there's nothing wrong with direct mail. There's nothing wrong with social media. There's nothing wrong with electronic newsletters, etc. It's how all of those items are working in concert together to properly communicate to the right people about the right events that are coming to town. But direct mail is not cheap.
I have a suggestion to the folks that talked about having a classic movie series. I think that's a terrific idea, but obviously we can't commit, or it seems obvious to me at any rate, that we can't commit to a series of, for example, 5 films and take a chance on having 25 to 40 people show up, and we've had even less for different kinds of films than that. So my suggestion is talk to your friends, talk to businesses, find a sponsor. If we get somebody to sponsor those so we aren't exposed to a potential loss, then I think the odds are much more likely to have the Seventh Seal or whatever your idea of a classic film is. For example, TimberTech. As I could be wrong, but I don't think they're sponsoring anything right now. And there are several other examples. We don't have the industry we had a few years ago, but there are folks that are here and I would think would want to contribute to the community, and that's a way that we can do that.
That's a great idea. Maybe R&L would like to sponsor Convoy or something like that, right? I wonder who would sponsor Deliverance. What's that? I couldn't hear you. Yeah, pork producers. We get Ned Beatty in here. Oh, that's good. Pork producers. Oh, God, that's funny. Any other questions or comments? We're getting punchy. We're getting toward the end here. Please fill out your stuff. If you haven't liked us on Facebook, please do. If you haven't checked out our website, please do and make some comments as we're rebuilding that. We want to make sure that it functions in a way that is going to be a lot more useful for all of you. This really is a great time to be involved. There's there's some excitement that's going on here. You know, as you count down to 100, I mean, think about it. This thing's going to be 100 years old. I hope I look this good when I'm 100. I might need some spackle. But, you know, please take the time to fill that out. Do email Dave. I have my business cards, too, if anybody needs one. Feel free to email me directly if you feel that that would be better. But again, please do fill this out, because I promise you what you're sharing with us is going to be used and is truly valued and appreciated, so we can make this place as awesome as the people that work here. All right? Anything else? All right, you guys. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you.